Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
Karm, we are closing in on episode 50, and today is the treat of all treats. Do you believe that there is someone else out there? And I don't mean in Miami, and I don't mean in Hungary or Yugoslavia. I mean out in the universe. Are we here alone, or do we have company out there?
Before I met this famous man.
By the way, we didn't interview him yet. Are you ever going to remember that we were...
I can never... No,
we'll tell you who our guest is.
I didn't say anything. I just said before we met this famous man.
Correct.
I think that it would be virtually impossible on just a pure logic level that there are no other living creatures on other planets.
Prior to our guest today, you thought that?
Prior to that.
So you're saying in an infinite universe and galaxy that we are the only creatures?
That I don't believe in that. I believe that there is life on other planets.
Hold on, you just contradicted yourself.
No, I did
Prior
not.
to our guest today, did you believe in alien life or did you not believe in alien life?
I believed in alien life.
Okay. Well, in theory, we haven't interviewed the guest we're about to interview, even though we've interviewed them. So I can't ask you what you think now.
Why don't we just come out of the closet and say we interviewed him?
Karm, I thought we got along great on the ride over here today for the most part.
Don't waste on BS now. Finish it up. It's very good today.
We're going to be right back with Dr. Avi Loeb. And if you don't know who he is, get your Google out right now. He has a book out called Extraterrestrial, The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. He believes he saw something that is akin to a UFO. And if you think he's full of crap, this guy is a world-renowned astrophysicist at Harvard University who is in an elite unit of the Israel Defense Forces. So he's no crackpot. Come back after the break and find out why we are not alone.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
Karm, I don't know if you know this, but I've been, for the last 20 plus years, listening to a radio show called Coast to Coast AM, which is about conspiracy theories, aliens, all sorts of things. And I definitely believe that we are not the only one on this in this universe. Your thoughts? Is there something else out there, Karm?
Okay, I have a suggestion unrelated to what you said. Make his biography very short.
It's impossible.
Because it will take half an hour.
Now, this is a real Karm yelling at me. Dr. Loeb has no idea what he's gotten himself into.
Make it very brief.
Our guest is the world-renowned Dr. Avi Loeb. His biography is the length of a Joe Rogan podcast, so I'll keep it as brief as possible. In short, he's one of the world's most renowned astrophysicists. And as it turns out, the two of us, Dr. Loeb and me, have a lot in common. We're both Jewish. We both studied at Hebrew University. Both fans of the existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre, because my father, a psychiatrist, forced me to read his books. We both, the list goes on.
Okay,
I must be intelligent.
It's not about you.
We both know Alan Guth. Alan Guth is from my hometown, and that's not the only one. Dr. Arno Penzias is from our hometown, who I'm sure Dr. Loeb was inspired by. Dr. Arno Penzias won a Nobel Prize in physics for the Big Bang Theory. Back to Dr. Loeb and not me. He was the longest-serving chair of Harvard's Department of Astronomy. In June 2020, he was sworn in as a member of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology at the White House. And back in December of 2012, he was selected as one of the 25 most influential people in space by Time magazine. Most importantly, he has the cojones, not a Hebrew word, to admit alien spacecraft may be in our solar system, a suggestion that has now become the much talked about book, Extraterrestrial, the first sign of intelligent life beyond Earth. He's apparently doing 100 podcasts. We're going to stretch his time as much as possible. 100 podcasts out of 2 million. So you know we're good if we got him. Dr. Loeb, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
And
by the way, you shouldn't have wasted all this time on my titles. I'm fundamentally a farm boy who was curious. And, you know, one of the most vivid memories I have from my childhood was sitting at dinner and asking difficult questions. And the adults in the room would pretend that they know the answer or dismiss the question if they didn't know the answer. And that was very troubling to me. So I became a scientist so that I can pursue difficult questions and be guided by evidence. But to my surprise, many of my colleagues in academia are still pretending that they know the answer or dismiss the question if they don't know the answer.
Interesting. And I think that has to do with Dr. Guth, which we'll get to in a second. But question for you. Most Israelis, especially the successful ones, which are 99%, were affected in one way or the other by their service in the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. And you were in a unit called Talpiot, which they only choose 24 people each year out of the entire country. So how did being in that unit affect your work today?
Well, the one thing I remember from the early paratrooping that we did is a sentence saying sometimes a soldier needs to put his body on the barbed wire so that other soldiers will be able to pass through. And I pretty much feel that way nowadays in the sense that there is a lot of pain from social media that one can that is inflicted if you deviate from the beaten path. And I see it in a more global way. I'm trying to allow a conversation on this possibility that we are not the smartest kid on the block. You know, my daughters, when they were young, they thought that they're the center of the world. And of course, that changed when they went to the kindergarten. So I think it will take a while before my colleagues in academia will revise their notion. But the best way to convince them is to collect evidence. And the strange thing is people argue based on what Carl Sagan said, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I just wrote a commentary yesterday titled Extraordinary Evidence Requires Extraordinary Funding. Because if you look at physics, the biggest projects aiming to carve out new frontiers, they cost billions of dollars. And you cannot imagine discovering something new and fundamental without spending that money. And so it's a circular argument to argue we shouldn't consider extraterrestrials and at the same time not fund any search for them. It's just like sitting at home and saying, nobody is knocking on my door, therefore I don't have neighbors. And actually the way to find your neighbors is to look through the windows and preferably with telescopes.
I came prepared for this one. I read your opinion piece in The Hill, and the defense budget, just to give everyone perspective, for 2022 is $768 billion. That is what America is concerned about, spending $768 billion to kill other people, whereas the Galileo Project, which is your project to look out the window, as you say, into the universe, is exponentially less. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's to accomplish our task, we need about $100 million. And the project was announced in July 2021 as a result of a few multi-billionaires that visited the porch of my home and were inspired by my book, Extraterrestrial, and provided $2 million to my research fund at Harvard. And within a few months, we are planning to assemble the first telescope system on the roof of the Harvard College Observatory. And then we will make copies of it and put those copies in many different locations. But the number of copies we can make will depend on the funding we have. And we need about $100 million to have enough copies and get good statistics about these unidentified aerial phenomena. That I should say, it's quite remarkable that the Congress legislated the establishment of a new office in government, and President Biden signed that defense bill, and it will start its operations in June 2022. And the government is the most conservative organization you can think of. They decided to allocate funds to studying these objects that they don't know the nature of. And it's about time that science will get engaged as well. I mean, the government is not equipped with the scientific capabilities that the Galileo Project has, and that's we are aiming to clear up the fog. We are aiming to serve the government and help identify the nature of these objects.
Okay. May I say something?
It is your show,
as a
Carmela.
completely lay person, I studied psychology. I don't know anything except I watch NOVA programs every now and then on educational. That's my expertise. But I think most people have a misconception. They think that you encountered an ET type of a character, and they don't realize that you actually observed something in outer space. And you know what? I would like to have the opportunity to tell you what you taught us about this object in outer space, to see how much I did as a layperson did not understand. It will take 3 minutes.
Dr.
Okay?
Loeb, do you know the difference between my mother and God? God does not know everything.
Anyway.
Carmela, go on.
No, but it's a challenge. What you saw, and you saw it in 2018. 17. And you saw an object in outer space, which many people in the lay community misinterpret as it looks like a cigar, but it doesn't look like a cigar. It's a 1 millimeter or less thin object that is 10 times longer than it is wide, correct? And
well, projected on the sky, but in fact, it's very thin, as you just said, but it's about 100 meters, the size of a football
field. Yes. And what happened to this object, I'm just testing to see if I understood what you were teaching. This object, how do we know that it's not from our galaxy, but from outer space? It is because it's not influenced by the gravity of the sun, correct?
No. So we know that it's not bound to the sun because it's moving too fast to be bound to the sun. Okay. So it's not part of the solar system simply because it's moving too fast. With that, we can tell from the trajectory. But then on top of that, it was pushed away from the sun by a force other than gravity. Okay.
Yeah, and
so
that's the old-fashioned saying $84,000 question. Today, with inflation, is 84.
Carmela, I have a great idea. We have one of the most world-renowned astrophysicists who actually saw this. Why don't we let him tell us?
I think I'm fascinated because you have scientific proofs that it is not what people think it is.
Carmela, I think what you're getting at.
I
think what you're getting at and what the science community, so the media, me in the media, we tend to sensationalize things. So Dr. Loeb comes up with this, and then the world thinks that he says that he saw an alien like we see E.T. in the movies, which is not the case. So Dr. Loeb, let's take a half step back from Dr. Waldman over here and tell us, how do you pronounce this Hawaiian name? Oumuamua?
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua, yes.
Oumuamua.
Okay. And what is it, and how did you see it?
Right. It was discovered in October 19th, 2017 by a telescope in Hawaii on Mount Haleakala. And it was given this name because it means in the Hawaiian language, scout, a messenger from far away. And we see this object simply because it reflects sunlight. So it has the size of a football field, and objects smaller than that we cannot see because there is not enough light reflected. And it's really the very first survey telescope that was able to see objects the size of a football field from outside the solar system. Okay, so that's why it was the first one discovered. And then the astronomers thought it's a comet, because comets are icy rocks covered with ice. at the periphery of the solar system, and they can be easily dislodged by passing stars. So you can imagine rocks being thrown away from other planetary systems around other stars, and they would be comets. And this one was not a comet, because usually in a comet, when it comes close to the sun, the ice evaporates and you end up with vapor and dust. But there was no cometary tail around this object. And as it was tumbling around, every 8 hours, the amount of sunlight reflected from it changed by a factor of 10. And as Carmela said, that implied that it has a very extreme shape. And moreover, there was this force acting on it, pushing it away from the sun. And I should say there is another object discovered in September 2020 by the same telescope, which shared the same qualities. It was given the name 2020 SO. It was pushed away from the sun by reflecting sunlight, and it didn't have a cometary tail. Turned out to be a rocket booster that was launched in 1966 to the moon.
I read this.
We know that the walls of that rocket booster were very thin, and therefore it had a large area for its mass. And we also know that we produced it. So it's definitely artificial, this 2020 SO. The question is, who produced Oumuamua? And one of the goals of the Galileo Project is to find another Oumuamua, to date the next Oumuamua. You know, it's just like having a date. You meet someone you like, but then by the time you recognize that person is away. You know, it went away, gone. You cannot meet that person anymore. So you are trying to date the next Oumuamua. And then the idea is to send a camera that will come very close to it and take a high-resolution photograph of it, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. In my case, a picture is worth 66,000 words. You know, I wouldn't need to write the book. These are the number of words in my book if I had a high-resolution image.
Now, you say that you can estimate that we might be finding, on average, one of these objects a month after the Vera C. Rubin Observatory goes online. How are you so confident that there are more of these Oumuamuas out there? Even though I'm saying
we don't know. We don't know for sure. That's assuming that it was on a random trajectory, so you can estimate how frequently such things could come our way. You know, it's just like plastic bottles on the surface of the ocean. If you know how many of them are per unit area, you know your chance of seeing one within a certain distance from you. And so this estimate of having one a month or once every few months with the Vera Rubin Observatory, that is based on the assumption that it was not targeting the inner part of the solar system, and we don't know. So obviously it's a fishing expedition. You know, we need to check if our fishing net will find another fish like that. But yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if I remember this correctly, that it was sent 10,000 years ago?
Oh, yeah. So the point is, it's at its speed. It crosses the solar system only, every tens of thousands of years. So the point is, right now, if this object was on a random trajectory, right now there should be quadrillion such objects in the solar system. The way I think of the solar system, it's just like a mailbox. You know, we want to check if we have any mail in it. Because, if we have a love letter there, and for example, if you find a love letter in the attic and its time has passed, the subject of the letter has died by now, then it loses its the relevance. And it's really important for us to check our mailbox, because maybe there is a prescription there for the salvation of humanity, for how, to save our planet, how to keep our civilization alive for much longer than we will otherwise. And I think just thinking that we are unique and special and privileged is very arrogant. And that's what people have done so far. And I can sort of understand it by watching my daughters that thought that they are the center of the world when they were young. Yeah.
I'm sure they are the center of the world.
Of your world, anyway.
My daughters are the center of my world, but I try to keep them at a distance. So Just to clarify, so this thing that you saw in 2017, are you saying that it is essentially what the government now calls UAPs or unidentified aerial phenomenon? Is it what you would consider the general public to be a UFO? Is that what it is?
It's different because those unidentified aerial phenomena are in the atmosphere of the Earth. So they're relatively close to us, and people can take pictures of these things with their cell phones. Oumuamua was much farther away. It was observed by astronomers. And so these are two different classes of objects that enter the solar system from outside and come within the orbit of the Earth around the sun. These are called interstellar objects because they do not belong to the sun. And the first one was Oumuamua, and it looked really weird. So my point is, let's check if there are smaller objects moving faster, and let's take a high-resolution image of them because we should be guided by evidence, not by prejudice. But at the same time, there are claims, including from military personnel, to have seen objects in the Earth's atmosphere, and these are the UAP. And that's what the government new office is supposed to discuss and collect the data on. And the Galileo Project will address both because we want to find whether any of these objects may have originated from an extraterrestrial technological civilization. And I should emphasize, we are not looking for ET, not biological creatures, because, we were designed by Darwinian evolution to survive here on Earth. We will not survive for long times in space for more than a few years. So it's most likely that you will find equipment in space. We sent equipment to space, 5 spacecraft that NASA launched out of the solar system.
Roughly, how far away was this object that you observed, just to give people a perspective?
It was a fraction, about a third of the distance to the sun.
Third of the distance to the sun. I guess that's a long ways. Now, let me just ask you point blank. Do you believe there are aliens out there?
It's very likely. I think humans, by our nature, we are very attached to ourselves. We are born into this world and get most of the data about our immediate vicinity. And so we think that we are really central and important. It's just like actors put on a stage and they think that the play is about them. But what we realize is that we are not at the center of the stage, despite what people thought for many centuries. We know now that the Earth moves around the sun and we are not at the center of the universe. And moreover, we know the universe existed for 13.8 billion years. We just came at the end. So the play is definitely not about us. And what we need to find out is whether there are other actors out there, and perhaps they have a better perspective about what the play is about. And my point is that we should start from scratch rather than think that we are important, privileged. Let's start always from the assumption that what we find around us is sort of typical. And most of the stars formed billions of years before the sun. So it's very likely that there was something like us before us and around another star. We know that half of the sun-like stars have a planet the size of the Earth, roughly the same separation. So the Earth-Sun system is very common. It's not rare in any way. And we should just search rather than assume that we are special and unique. Why would anyone argue that it's an extraordinary claim to say that something like us existed 1 billion years ago around another star and had enough time to populate the entire galaxy with equipment?
But why is it important that was a species that was exactly like us? Because it could be some different, but sentient, right?
Right. It could be much more. I would guess that we are in middle of the road in terms of intelligence. I tell students in my class at Harvard, half of you are below the median, and they get very upset. But that's the definition in statistics. Definition of the median is that half of the class, in any class, half of the people are below the median. So they have a hard time accepting the idea that so many of them are below the median.
Because they are elite. That's because they were raised to be elite.
Yeah, but it's a statistical fact that in any class, half of the students are below the median. So I think it's very likely that we are sort of in the middle of the distribution of intelligence in the Milky Way galaxy, and that there are other civilizations that were far more advanced than we are. And of course, we can learn from them. And in my view, and actually, there was a sermon given by a rabbi about my book, Extraterrestrial, in the Jewish high holidays this year. He said about it. I also had a conversation in the Washington National Cathedral with two reverends. And I was telling them, a very advanced scientific civilization is a good approximation to God because we are almost producing synthetic life in our laboratories right now. I mean, maybe within a decade, we'll definitely be there. And in the future, you can imagine us when we understand how to unify quantum mechanics and gravity, we might be able to create a baby universe in the laboratory. And, these are qualities that were assigned to God in the Old Testament. What I'm saying is, imagine a civilization that is 1 million years ahead of us, technologically or scientifically, or 1 billion years ahead of us. They may actually be a good approximation to God. So one way to unify religion and science is to find them.
Do you believe in God, Dr. Loeb?
In this context, yeah, I think that a very advanced scientific culture may have been what we call God, in the sense that they can do what you might think is a miracle. If you think about a caveman finding a cell phone, the caveman would think, oh, the cell phone must be a rock of a type that I've never seen before. It would look like a miracle. Then he would press a button and he would realize that it records his voice, press another button, it records his image. And then it will become clear that this cell phone is something else. It's not a rock. It's something well beyond that caveman. And for us to meet a very advanced piece of technology, it would not be those that sent the technology, but it would be some technology equipped with artificial intelligence. I can think of AI astronauts. Artificial intelligence is currently driving cars, but in the future, you can imagine AI astronauts rather than human. Yeah. And so if we meet the AI system that is far smarter than we are, that does things that we cannot imagine, it would look like magic to us.
Now, the whole notion again, back on the ET story. You said something, and I think you said it, or I found it in one of the articles, is that we would not recognize them when they show up.
Well, that's one possibility. If we don't have the same means to communicate as they do, then we might not recognize their signals. That's a possibility. I'm actually, since the metaverse was announced by Facebook, I'm actually worried that maybe some aliens are putting goggles of the metaverse on their head, and as a result, they don't engage with the universe that we share, the reality that we all share. So they completely are detached from us. I'm worried about that. That may be an explanation for why we don't see them. But of course, it's very tempting to live in a virtual reality because you can tailor that reality to, for example, satisfy all of your will. Like if you want to be at the center of the world, you just put goggles, and in that metaverse, in that virtual reality, you are at the center of the universe. Unfortunately, it's not the reality that we all share. And I very much hope that some of them do take these goggles off their head and do engage with the rest of the universe. And, it may well be that the exodus of probes and spacecraft from a planetary system is enhanced when the host star dies. That's when the civilization realizes it has an existential threat. And at that point, they start to send out a lot of probes. But I don't really want to imagine what they are doing, rather than just search for things that do not look like rocks, do not look like human-made equipment, that are something else. And if we find something like that, it would have a huge impact on the future of humanity. And the way I see it, the biggest impact is that if you look at history, most of the atrocities were conducted by people that wanted to feel superior relative to other people. And, the best example is the Nazi regime that triggered the death of 75 million people. That was 3% of the world population in 1940. And it's 10 times more than the number of deaths triggered by COVID-19. And we've been talking about COVID-19 for 2 years now. And just think about the fact that a group of people trying to feel superior triggered so many deaths. And my hope is if we do find a smarter kid on our cosmic block, it will teach us modesty and imply that the differences among humans are really meaningless. And we should treat each other with respect as equal members of the human species.
Karm, the most important part of that, once again, is he says we're mid-level intelligence, which means you are no longer the smartest person in the universe, Karm.
Joel, I never act like I am, nor am I. I have a very low IQ. I assure you, I'm a nobody, but I still am curious. And I think that most people are very curious about your topic. And this book, The Extraterrestrial, I just heard
the book is Extraterrestrial, the first signs of intelligent life beyond Earth, which, by the way...
I didn't buy it. Usually I show the book.
Well, we didn't have time. It was short notice.
But we only heard about you 3 days ago.
However, 10 filmmakers have reached out, or production companies, to Dr. Loeb to try to already make this into a movie, and Dr. Loeb suggested that they use Brad Pitt, but I say that Dr. Loeb is more handsome.
Better looking.
Dr. Loeb, you look like you could be like a leading man / maybe a cold-blooded serial killer in a movie.
Well, actually, there were 30, but...
30.
There was an interesting tweet by someone, a man, that said that his wife has a new crush. She saw Avi Loeb on television. A sexier version of Anthony Fauci, and
no!
I mentioned that to my wife. That Fauci is a low bar.
Yeah. Brad Pitt is not. Let me ask you a question. You've done tons of media. You're apparently doing 100 podcasts. I consider us...
altogether, I had about 2,000 interviews.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of interviews. Well, out of 2 million podcasts, you're a science man. It's still a pretty good number that we've got you. But what is one question that no one has asked you that you wish they had?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think they asked me almost everything.
I'm trying to get you to break news on our podcast so we can go viral and get a zillion subscribers and 10 Hollywood production companies.
That's all this crass materialist thinks about. I think about, I really, on a given afternoon, sitting in my apartment, word of honor, without you, before you, I look out the window and I said, here we are all sitting on this tiny ball, and my husband has this joke. He says, Carmela, did we pay our gravity bill? Because if we didn't pay our gravity bill, like our electricity bill, we will fall off the planet, right? And that's one of his jokes, standing jokes.
You know what the true sign of Dr. Loeb's genius is?
That he's down to earth. That
too, but not that he discovered some possible foreign object out there, but the fact that this guy has zero social media footprint. How do you do that in 2022?
Well, I promised my wife that I will not have any social media. And, it serves two things. One, that I don't have to waste time on checking what other people think about me. I don't care how many likes I have.
Did you hear that, Joel?
Yes.
Joel thinks too much what other people think about him.
He was in the Israeli army. This guy's a badass, too, on top of being a scientist.
Well, I really am focused. I tell my Galileo team all the time, keep your eyes on the ball, not on the audience. And, that's pretty much what I can do without social media footprint. I should tell you that a couple of days ago, I had my first interview on the metaverse.
Oh, my God.
Let me tell you something real quick, Dr. Loeb. I called my mother in an utter panic. This is true, correct, Carmela? About 3 days ago. And I said, I listened to Joe Rogan, but I want you to know that I'm going to overtake him in subscribers, and you'll be coming to me for 3-hour interviews. Guarantee you that. But I called my mother in absolute panic because they did a show on the metaverse, and I'm like, should I have bought a plot of land in the metaverse? I know you're a scientist, but financially speaking, should I be buying land in the metaverse right now? Is it here to stay?
From all signs, it looks like it's becoming very popular now. Of course, you can imagine a situation where there will be a blackout, an electricity blackout, and all your properties, all your assets will be deleted. Even though,
and you say, "Oops."
That's the difference from the real world. By the way, the idea of living in virtual reality is not new. I mean, obviously, lots of people put cosmetic makeup. They take recreational drugs. Some people believe in life after death, or that we are at the center of the universe. People believed in that. So, the idea, having virtual realities that flatter your ego, where you can have a better life, is old news. It's just that the technology allowing that changed. And of course, the difference between virtual realities and the one that we all share is that the one that we all share has to abide by the laws of physics, whereas the virtual reality can, do whatever it wants, whatever you want. And of course, one of the real reality, the actual reality causes both pain and pleasure. The pain is that we can't really go to Mars, the surface of Mars, and live there for more than a few years because, for example, cosmic rays will bombard our body and not allow us to survive. And that's the pain, that there are constraints that the physics puts on your life.
Have you told Elon Musk this?
Yeah, I actually wrote in The Hill an essay about it just a few weeks ago. I don't know if he reads it. But the second thing is, of course, it causes pleasure. It allows people to go to the metaverse and pretend that they have, that they live in a different world. And
it's like the modern day schizophrenia I just thought of this second. Modern day schizophrenia, when you live in schizophrenia, where you live in the imaginary world that is not there. It's like the metaverse, it's
although you can make money in the metaverse.
Societal level.
My problem is the world of possible realities is infinite, and usually people choose those virtual reality that bring them pleasure, that flatter their ego. And this selection is not aligned with the actual reality. And, that is a problem, especially in science, and that's the reason I advocate for us to be guided by evidence and not by social pressure, not by social media. Because, for example, today, Galileo Galilei, that 4 centuries ago was put in house arrest by philosophers. Today, he would have been canceled on social media. And if you were to ask those philosophers to design a rocket that would reach Mars, they will not get it to Mars because their idea of the world was that Mars around the Earth, and they would send the rocket in the wrong direction. So my point is, reality is whatever it is. We can like each other and feel good about it, but if we don't understand reality the way it is, we cannot really act responsibly. For example, if 1,000 years ago, people said the human body has a soul and therefore anatomy should be forbidden. Just imagine if scientists would argue, no, we shouldn't study the human body because there are people making nonsensical statements about it. Where would modern medicine be? The mRNA vaccines that were developed were based on understanding the human body. So understanding reality is really crucial for us to cope with the challenges that reality puts. And that's my duty as a scientist, to try and figure out I'm in love with the actual reality. When you are in love with someone, you want to know everything about that someone. You don't want that someone to put makeup that makes the face look better. You want to see the pimples of reality. And that's, as a scientist, what I want to see. So I don't care if people want to feel that they're the smartest in the world. That's not my concern. I want to figure out if there is a smarter kid on our block, because if that's the reality we live in, we better know it and adjust accordingly.
100%. I know your time is valuable. We're going to wrap up in a sec, but you're in some good company. I know you thought fondly of Senator Harry Reid, may he rest in peace. He said, "I've never intended to prove that life beyond Earth exists." Excuse me. But if science proves that it does, I have no problem with that. Winston Churchill also said that he believes that there could be alien life out there, and they are not alone. So does Khloe Kardashian. She tweeted after seeing strange lights in the sky that her husband, I think, Kendall, and I are quote unquote spazzing out. So you are not the only one, right, Dr. Loeb?
Thank you. Yeah, well, in this Washington National Cathedral, Jeff Bezos was saying that he was inspired to invest in space tourism as a result of watching Star Trek. And next to me was Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence. And I told her, I never liked Star Trek because the storyline violates the laws of physics. And that bothers me as a physicist. And she said, we need to work on you, Avi. And when I mentioned that in a commentary in The Hill, the same day I got an email from William Shatner, who played
we know.
Captain Kirk, on the USS.
He just went into space.
Maybe you can help us get him as a guest.
He asked me to speak with him. So tomorrow I have an interview with him, actually. And, I think that science fiction is really inspiring, but we should separate science from fiction.
I never watch science fiction, never.
Yeah, I'm not a big sci-fi guy, but that's also why we're not physicists.
I have a problem dealing with reality, what I call reality, the physical world reality. I don't go into those fugues. He does.
Dr. Loeb, this was fantastic. I'm going to wrap it up this way. Two things. Mayor Ed Koch, the great mayor of New York City, used to ask, how am I doing? Out of your 2,000 interviews, how do you rate this one?
Oh, this one is at the top few percent, I would say, because, first of all, it's the first time that I'm interviewed by a mother and her son. And secondly, it's very refreshing, actually, to hear your mother. And she's an independent thinker. And I think, okay, you may ask, why did I pursue this path that is a little bit abrasive, that causes some friction with the mainstream of the science community? And the reason I did that is because a few years ago, both my parents passed away.
Yeah, I saw that. They're buried in the Moshav.
The Moshav, exactly. Yeah. And, that left an impression on me because I realized, we live for such a short time. Let's stick to the substance. Let's not, pretend or, behave like the adults in the room. Let's figure out the answers to very important questions by looking for evidence. And it's really fun to behave like a kid. I don't care what people think about me. I just want to figure it out. And, kids get bruised by bumping into things, but it's much more fun to be a kid than to be an adult. And science allows me to maintain my childhood curiosity. And I insist on doing that.
That's excellent. And I'll let you know, I'm busting
as they say, behatzlacha. Even though you are in the right place at the right time, I still wish you behatzlacha. A lot of success in the future. And I hope you are the one who will introduce us to our fellow travelers in the universe.
Well, thank you. You know what my wife says, if they ever land in our backyard, I should make sure that to leave the car keys with her, because I may not come back and she needs to, use the car. And the second thing is, please ask them not to ruin the loan when they take off.
That's something my dad would say. Hey, Dr. Loeb, I'm busting my ass. I work full-time for CBS News and full-time here, so I need my mother to stay alive because I need her for this show. Okay. Last thing, Carmela, my great mother, has been screaming at me. I hear that you're talking to William Shatner. I'm like, wow, he'd be a great guest. But she's been screaming at me, so I'm going to leave it with this. How can we help you, the world-famous, renowned astrophysicist? If there is a way that we can help you, you let us know.
No, you know why he said this? He said it because he was always asking for favors. I said, you offer things, don't I?
I'm a hustler.
Him.
I'm an Israeli hustler.
I'm still educating him.
I lived in Israel. I have it in my blood. I'm hustling.
Anyway.
Well, it's really simple. In a science project like the Galileo Project, we are really limited by the funding we get, in the sense that the number of telescope systems that we will put and the amount of data that we will get depends on the funding. And right now we have $2 million, and the hope is to get $100 million. And actually, I should say that in recent days, I received a lot of emails from very wealthy individuals that may be interested, but it's really the $100 million target that we need to get to in order to accomplish the task. And that's, by all standards of scientific projects, a medium-sized project. There was $10 billion invested in the James Webb Space Telescope, $10 billion in the Large Hadron Collider. That's 100 times more than what the Galileo Project needs. And I very much hope we will get there. I should say that, the mainstream of the science community has been searching for things that were not found. For example, the dark matter, what most of the matter in the universe is. We haven't found it for 40 years, and we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on that search. And my point is, if we just assume that we are not unique and privileged, unlike you with your mother, you are privileged. But let's just assume that as the human species, there were copies like us that predated us 1 billion years ago. And let's just search for them, for the equipment they sent into space. If we just assume that, I don't think it's speculative at all. And let's just, with a sense of modesty, search the sky with a fishing net. Just, asking where the fish are without using a fishing net is just, inappropriate. And my sense is the public understands that. It's common sense. It's just that the scientific community is late to the party. And I think within the coming years, we're likely to find the answer. And of course, for that, we need the funding for the Galileo Project at about $100 million. I'm optimistic. I think we will know. We are taking the road not taken, in the words of Robert Frost, that wrote this poem about two roads in the woods, and he took the road not taken, and that made all the difference for him. For me, the main benefit from taking the road not taken is that there might be low-hanging fruit, because nobody picked that fruit. And in that case, within the coming years, we'll report back, and I'll be glad to speak with both of you. And I'm sure that Carmela will live very long.
I plan to.
Her mother was around till 98. Look, she told me to ask for help, and now someone's asking me for $100 million. But I have good.
He would love to give it to you.
But Dr. Loeb, I'll tell you what. I feel like you and I are soulmates. Come down to Miami. My kids go to, it's called the Lerman School. We're basically on financial assistance, but every other parent is, we've got 10 billionaire parents at this
Joel
school.
will talk to people.
I will hustle for you. I'll get you the...
These days, someone can gain tens of billions just by investing in Bitcoin or,
non-fungible tokens, NFLs.
Yeah, I was introduced. So I was interviewed on the Metaverse a couple of days ago by a monkey that had heart-shaped glasses in the Metaverse.
Unreal.
And I asked, of course, this monkey was an NFT that represented the actual interviewer. Yeah. And I asked the monkey, how much is this NFT worth? And I was told, it was bought for $30,000 and now it's worth $60,000 after a few months. And, there is a new world out there of NFTs, of Bitcoin, of, where someone can make a lot of money very quickly. And, finding out whether we are the smartest kid on the block, I think is
a good investment. It's a good investment.
It's a good investment because if you do find equipment that represents technologies that will take us 1 million years to develop ourselves, it might feel like copying in an exam. But on the other hand, let's take advantage of it and save ourselves 1 million years in development. And whoever imports that to Earth will become extremely wealthy. And I think it's a very attractive, risky research project that is worth taking since nobody did it before.
Dr. Loeb, you are, and this is actually literal, my mom says this all the time, you are a gentleman and a scholar, but you really are a scholar. Your book is Extraterrestrial, the First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth. Very lastly, Carmela, do you want to say anything bad about me בעברית to Dr. Loeb?
לא, אני לא רוצה, יש לי מבטא הונגרית, אני מצטערת.
אשתי מהונגריה.
כן, בעצם אני מאוד מודה לך שאתה נתת לנו את הזמן.
Dr. Loeb, you know who we had on as a guest?
ואני רוצה בהצלחה.
We had as a guest Dr. Fisher, Ellie Fisher, who has, those are the all the products in Israel. The Dr. Fisher, like this.
Now, you are not letting him go today, because usually he accuses me of always talking to people.
I don't know this, but apparently Dr. Fisher's products are in every home in Israel.
But not in his home, because he's not into shampoos and things.
I'm very familiar with Fisher, yes. But I should say it's a really great pleasure to meet both of you. And, I wish, my mother was alive and we could have a 4-person conversation because she really influenced me. I was surrounded by women throughout my life. I have 2 daughters and a wife, and my mother, I used to have a long conversation with her, and she inspired my interest in philosophy at a young age. And the other thing from my childhood, I grew up on a farm. I used to collect eggs every afternoon, and that pretty much shaped my approach to science.
To the world,
yeah. Every morning at 5 a.m., I jog in the company of birds, ducks, wild turkeys, and rabbits, and I'm very much connected to nature. And exploring space for me is going to that territory where humans didn't reach yet, and therefore it's much more exciting than social media.
Well, may your mother's memory be a blessing, and you can always bring the wife instead, and we'll grab lunch. I'll bring my dad along.
Okay, and he has a wife, and he has 3 beautiful children. His son is called Yehuda.
Dr. Loeb, we'll spread the word about your book, spread the word about our podcast, and let's stay in close touch.
Thanks again. Toda.
It was a great pleasure.
Thanks.
Toda.
Right back with the new schmooze.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
On all sorts of stupid things that you usually do.
Karm, don't tell me what to spend time with or not what to spend time. I produced the show. Don't tell me finally some of your real personality is coming out. What did you think of, now you can talk about it. What did you think of Dr. Avi Loeb?
Well, I heard about, today is Wednesday.
Which, by the way, Dr. Alan Guth is another super famous astrophysicist, or kind of competitors at MIT, and Dr. Guth is from Highland Park, New Jersey, and I've emailed him multiple times, and he's ignored me, so he can screw off, because Dr. Loeb, who is better known, came out and talked to us. He said he had exactly 30 minutes, and we got him for 51, baby. What do you think of him?
And who is counting? Who is petty about minutes? No,
Joe Rogan, I'm coming for your ass. I'm dead serious. I think about this. I eat this. I breathe this. All I do is think about this 24/7. All I do is think about this 24/7. I'm finding guests. I'm hustling. I'm doing social media promotion, and I'm coming for you, Joe Rogan. And I'm coming for you, Joe Rogan.
He's having a little spasm here. Anyway, you want to hear what I think?
Yeah.
I heard about him Sunday night, so I didn't have time to buy his book. But
try to reduce the grunting in an audio medium. I've told you that a million times.
Old people grunt.
Yeah, but not in an audio medium. They're not radio or podcast hosts. By the way, Dr. Loeb, for those who didn't hear it, said that out of the 2,000 interviews he did, he would put us in the top %.
No, top few percent.
Top few %. So I left out one word. And he said he has never been interviewed by a mother's son. And he got a little emotional. All these people miss their mothers.
Yeah.
Like he's jealous. I have something that money can't buy. I have a mother.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who cares about you?
Karm,
who cares about
you?
The
amount of work that I'm doing, if you drop dead right now,
my God. I will not drop dead because I'm afraid to drop dead.
Okay, what did you think of him? Because we got to get to the news schmooze.
And we don't have to get today to the news.
No, we 100% do. This is a show with formatting. This isn't just do what you want to do like you do in life and then yell at me to be. What did you think of him?
if I wouldn't know that he is smart and he's a Harvard full professor and the head of all sorts of honor societies and national
He meets presidents and gives talks here.
Yeah. I would think I know him because he is really. He even says that we shouldn't have the idea that we are so superior as human beings, and that I also feel that we are just a speck. We are on the 27th floor. When I look down, I know exactly what he's talking about. The people on downstairs from the 27th floor look like little ants. And you remember the other day in the park, we saw these ants working on that dead wasp that they were carrying?
Yeah, a bee stung my daughter between her big toe and middle toe. She had a nervous breakdown.
She's 7.5.
Carmela had to pull the stinger out. Then it got stuck in Carmela's. This is all just an afternoon in my life. Carmela pulls the stinger out, and then we find that
and then it gets stuck in my finger.
It got stuck in her finger, and then we find that the bee was carried about 400 miles by 10,000 ants in a matter of 10 seconds. Carmel, what did you think of Dr. Loeb? We got to get on with the news schmooze.
I just said that he's an unbelievable human being in his warmth, in his intelligence, in his openness. He's unbelievably open. What else can I say about him? He already did it all, and he's already successful. I don't have to anoint him.
He's also a showman. Like he knows how to.
He's not a showman.
He's a bit of a showman.
He is just a warm man. He's not a showman. He's not a showman. He's actually a little shy.
Karm's paranoid.
You are a showman.
Yeah, with my 300 subscribers. Okay. I was just about to go crazy again. On to the news schmooze.
You want a tissue to cry?
No, on to the news schmooze here, Karm. A commentary article published in the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday makes the case that a quote-unquote perfect storm is brewing in the Democratic Party, including low approval numbers for President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as questions about whether Biden, now 79, will be viable to run for a second term, in essence, leaving a leadership vacuum, paving the way for a potential Hillary Clinton run in 2024. Your thoughts?
The Commentary magazine is a right-wing magazine. Everything is polarized. I don't care. The subject bores me, and I hope that Hillary doesn't run because it's not good for her health. She's not in perfect health.
If she runs and Donnie runs again, I'm moving to Ron Waldman's, my uncle's farmhouse in Portugal, which is where he left to after Trump was president. So I will follow him there. My kids can see me in a few years. On to the next story.
Very funny. You're trying to be funny.
Americans say they read an average of how many books in a year?
0.
I thought it was going to be less than 0. There's no way this is right, this study. This has to be put out by a book publisher. Americans say they read an average of 12.6 books in a year. A smaller number than Gallup polls that are legit. A smaller number than Gallup has measured any prior survey.
They ask, sir, they probably go to a university and they ask the students who are assigned books.
Let me tell you something.
The average American doesn't read at all.
I'm no astrophysicist, but I did go to Brandeis.
Well, how many books do you read a year?
Probably a half, and I'll tell you why. I don't have time, and unlike, by the way,
people who love to read, they read on the toilet, they read in the...
I don't have time to read. When I go to the toilet,
You know what Alon does?
Yeah.
Alon,
by the way, is what is he? He's
your niece's husband.
My niece's husband.
He reads when he's in the car. That's
safe.
He has books on tapes.
He puts the book on so he's an MIT graduate who's starting a robotics company.
But you don't have to.
By the way, Alon, give your $100 million to Dr. Loeb for his telescope when you make your robots. He went to MIT, Mom.
Well, it doesn't matter. You could do the same thing. If you have no time to read at home, you could read in the car, driving here and there. It would be more meaningful than the Never mind. I'm not raising you.
Now, 17% of adults say they did not read any books in the past year.
That's not 17. That's 70.
90. Okay, on to the next story. Influencer, this is a story you can relate to, Karm. Influencer Bethany Garcia is one hot mama. For her stretch marks, cellulite, and a little bit of sagging, they are now sex symbols of her strength after the last 11 years of being pregnant, giving birth, and breastfeeding. She has 203,000 followers on Instagram. She's a mother of 5, showing that her physique has changed post-children. She's been sharing glamorous snaps of herself in intimates or swimsuits, or chatting openly about her sex life. I saw photos of her. Bethany, I appreciate what you're doing, but I nearly vomited, especially living in Miami and seeing what I see on a daily basis here. I appreciate it. But
yeah, because Miami has the biggest number of plastic boobs.
I saw one tight rump on the way in here.
Okay, Joel.
I pointed it out to you,
Joel,
Karm.
don't do this after the universe.
But let me just say, I give respect to all you and all the mothers and the changes in your body, but I don't care that much to subscribe to your Instagram page. Okay, we'll be right back with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
You want to know something? Raquel said she had a question for Grandma, and she's my granddaughter too.
Well, do you know what it is?
No, she wouldn't tell me. She would only tell you.
Well, if you want your other grandchildren to give questions to Grandma, even though they're in their 20s and went to MIT and Columbia, and if they want to provide questions, this goes out to you, Lior, Hannah, Judy, Rocky, Eddie, my sister's children. Eddie is what, 12, 13, 14. You're all welcome to email me on Tuesdays. I don't take phone calls. You can email me your questions for Grandma, and I will read them on this podcast.
Okay, read these other ones because
which will soon have more followers than Joe Rogan. I don't think people realize the amount of work I'm putting into this and getting. I mean, I've got a world famous astrophysicist saying how much he loves this podcast.
I know you're pleased with yourself now.
Okay, here we go. Carmela, question number 1. Put the note down and pay attention.
I don't know. You wrote
this. Comes from Z-Bugs. Okay, my sweet little Z-Bugs.
She's exactly 6. She was on the 3rd of January.
If there is a big sky that never ends, and in one place it's raining like Florida, but it's not raining in a place like California, how is that possible?
She's a genius, this girl. To ask this at the age of 6?
Mm-hmm. She's soon to take over Avi Loeb's career as an astrophysicist.
I have to tell you, she's
looking into the sky and pondering things.
She is really amazing. I would be most happy to show her how the Gulf Stream starts in California and goes all through the continent, and there are cloud masses. Oh, you know who should be able to answer her? Matt Broad. Matt Broad would be very emotional to hear that the 6-year-old asked him this question.
We'll defer to Matt Broad on that one. Chief meteorologist, KVOA, Tucson, Arizona, who actually has a degree in meteorology. On to the next question. How do eyes go to sleep?
That's also a brilliant question.
Correct.
Isn't this a brilliant question?
Correct.
Because the eyes are not an independent object. The eyes are everything is directed from the brain. That's where like the headquarters are that run everything. And when you go to sleep, it's sort of, there are like not little switches like on the light, but the brain also switches off. You close the eyelids so no light would bother you. That's very good to have it. It's like closing a door. And then in the brain, little things switch off, not without not the way other switches are. In the brain, the switches are a little different.
I literally didn't hear a word you just said. All I'm thinking about is how do we get subscribers? How do I blow this up?
Joel, I'm not interested in your crazy thinking. Anyway, it was an excellent question.
Isn't that hilarious, by the way? You lectured me to ask for help. The first time I asked for help, It's actually the second time.
He asked for $100 million.
God, I wish I had that kind of money. God, I wish I was like an Elon Musk and I could just sit there and be like, here you go.
Okay.
What a power that would be. What a tremendous feeling. Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say, I won't use the exact language. He said that when he felt the blood going through his veins, pumping iron, it was like having an
No,
orgasm.
I'm not interested.
I don't ever have to have an orgasm again. If I can give $100 million. Last question from Vita. How do birds sit on their eggs without breaking them? Thought that was interesting too.
Also wow, they are like totally unbelievable, these children. And they say to
She said if grandma sat on eggs, they'd... No, she didn't say that. But
Joel, I sat on this egg, that's why it's broken.
How do birds sit on their eggs without breaking them? It's a great question. How?
They are very, 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 very gentle, and they know that the eggs are breakable, and they have a special way that already their great-great-great-grandmother taught their mom how to sit on it, and then they were all taught how to sit on it.
I have
gently.
A follow-up question to this. If they don't speak English and you can't ask them, how do you actually know that that is true?
The birds?
Yeah.
Well, the birds, you don't mess into their lives. You do animal studies. They observe.
So do you think? I mean, I'm fascinated by this now. Actually, so
I know that the extraterrestrial are like birds.
Yeah, but when a chicken sits on its eggs, are you saying that? Do you think that the chicken does not
put full weight?
It doesn't put full weight, so it's constantly like above it, like keeping it's like doing a squat.
No, like there is an area like
a little space.
Yeah, a little space. Like the legs and the stomach are not like in between the legs and the stomach. There is a little room for.
Because
my God, I am an expert in this also. I knew I was an expert.
Because if you're a chicken,
I was an expert in everything now.
If you're a mother,
you're right.
If you're a mother chicken and you're squatting over these eggs,
exactly, you are squatting over.
Well, damn, that would hurt because I was doing squats yesterday.
But not that kind. It's a comfortable squat.
Got it. So, Karm, we covered everything today from alien space objects that you're an expert in. I love that you told Dr. Loeb you were going to tell him all about it.
Because you said to me.
And then he corrected you, which I loved.
I loved it. I knew he would.
I still don't know how to say the word uma.
Okay, I tell you. Oumuamua. Oumuamua. Oumuamua.
This was, if I may say so myself, a fascinating episode of Surviving the Survivor, sure to make us go viral. Any final thoughts, Karm?
Yes. I'm not obsessed with it going viral. Word of honor. I feel I'm so lucky to be taken out of the nursing home on Wednesdays and then meet with these fascinating people and learning all these new things. And because I'm so competitive and whatever,
by the way, I wanted to balance Dr. Loeb, who is obviously most likely to succeed, with me, who's least likely to succeed. Love you, America. We'll be back next week. Karm, anything?
Yes, I also love you, America.